Right, welcome back to Delboy's Garage. This is going to be part 7 of Project Triumph Exhaust. Now all I can do today is lay a couple of skins of paint on there just to get started. The metal is bare. You'd normally prime bare metal before you paint it, but I can't prime it because I'm not going to bother faffing about with high temperature primer. High temperature paints are a bit chalky and very matte. They don't kind of behave like normal gloss paints. There's no plastic in them. It's mostly ceramic dust and blah blah, all that stuff. So you put it on bare metal. But what I've always done with this stuff is scuff it as best you can, and then I put a couple of thin skins of it on and I let it dry overnight. Once it's completely dry, then I use a scotch pad, the old green pan scourer, and go over it all. Now you will find areas that come off, it flakes off bare to the metal because that hasn't keyed, and that's good. Then you get some more aggressive paper, give it a little scratch up, and then you just squirt some back on. And you keep going until you get to the point where you've got a full coating of the paint on it. Then you flat that back, and then you get yourself in there with a few serious coats, probably 5 or 6 coats, so it's nice and thick and you get a nice finish. Because obviously it's going to be very dry. I'm thinking it's also going to be very powdery and dusty looking, more so than the ceramic coating on the exhausts themselves. So you just buff that with a dry cloth and it comes up. It does come up. You get a same satin finish. You sort of match it in. Anyway, enough of that. All I've got to do first is sheet everything over so it doesn't get covered in paint, prep the stuff and make a sort of mini spray booth so I'm ready to start painting. Okay, stick around, stay tuned and see what happens. Right, now I'm just masking up these ends, these very top parts of the headers right up at the top, purely because the paint, albeit 800 centigrade worthy, it is still paint, and it's better to have a neat line and don't go any further than it is to start it chipping off at the top, because then it will just chip its way down. The other thing is you're manipulating tools and fasteners and so on around this area when you're bolting them on and taking them off, and that's going to pretty certainly at some point going to lead to scratches and chips. You don't need that. So I'm just going to mask up the ends, pick a neat line where the pipe starts, where the pipe is welded into this. This is a cast end. They make a casting to go into the head and then they weld the pipe onto that at the factory stage. So I'm just going to utilise the fact that there's a nice neat weld line around there and cover it up to that point. Just bring that paint from there down. I think that's the best way to do it. That covers it up properly. Now the person I use, if any of you want to do painting or you want any tips on painting and you're looking on YouTube, you can just go and check out Milo Garage. Uncle Milo, as far as I'm concerned, is a guru on paint. He's been doing it for about 40 years. And he repaints scooters these days, mostly, among other things. Repairs and repaints crashed scooters for dealerships over there in California. And I've learned a lot from him. A great deal. Something that I'll be exercising today in a minute once I've got all these masked up and popsicled, as he calls them. I'm ready to paint. Right, just these are little number plate plastic caps, and all I'm doing is a little blob of grease, tiny little smear like that on the end of it, just as a seal. Careful not to get any on the paintwork. I'm just going to snap that in the hole. Snap in. That's better. Snap that in the hole where the O2 sensor goes, so no paint goes in and contaminates anything in the thread. Right. Okay. Time to wash them down. Just using straightforward thinners just to wipe the metal down, so it's completely clean. We'll take the paint. And also, oops, gets all the rubbing down crap off as well, all the dust. Like it says on the tin, free from dust and grease. It smells nice too. Right, now, got all the paint I need. Just using that VHT. Now it says 800 centigrade. This is part of what we said to the people. 800 centigrade, that's cherry red. If you heat something with a blow lamp and it starts to glow dark red or starts to go a dark red colour, that's 800 degrees. You use that for case hardening. You heat it to that temperature and then you quench it in cold water, and that makes stuff hard, like hammer faces and that sort of thing. So exhausts don't really glow red unless you're sort of stunt riding and doing long distance and long burnouts and on the spot and stuff, and I don't do that. So ultimately these exhausts probably won't get much over 800 centigrade. So I think that's going to do the job. Anyway, this is just 2 coats, 2 skins over them, just to make sure that they're stuck. Should be okay. Let's get some layers on. So one of the things I picked up from Milo from watching his procedures and techniques on painting was, once you're ready to go, once everything's taped up and literally ready to start laying the paint on, was to just do a play act, do a practice run all around the part, making sure that you can get to everything. There's nothing worse than going to paint something and realising you can't reach the back, or you can't reach round some point, or that you can't move it in a way that you can then paint it. So preparing the job so that you can move all around it, so you haven't got to stop halfway and try and move it while there's wet paint on it and probably risk buggering it up. So that's quite a good little tip I learned from Milo. Just practice run round everything, make sure that when you've finished you can just leave it there and just walk away from it and it can dry and it's in a safe environment. Also these, I've got them chained to the ceiling or chained to the roof rafters on bungees, so they're not going anywhere. Everything's nice and solid, and that just makes sure that all your hard work isn't wasted when it falls off its bungee on the floor. Anyway, enough of that, let's get going. Just going to dust on a very light coat to start with. Just misting it on, no build at all. Right, there we go. Right, so that's first coat, reasonably all over. I'm going to leave that 15 minutes now to flash off and then put the second one on. Alright, ready for the next coat now. Actually left it for 45 minutes. The reason is, it's only 50 degrees in here, which is 10 centigrade. And the ideal temperature for spraying this is about 70 degrees, and I just haven't got a heater for the garage. I have, but I haven't set it all up. I haven't heated the garage because there's no need, it will just take time. Curing time is 10 hours, I'm going to give it 24 and then come and test it. We shall see. Second coat. Now on the second coat, because obviously the first one you put a mist over it, which acts as a primer. On the second coat you can put a little bit more on, but don't build it so much that it starts to get wet and look like it's going to run. Purely because you might then, especially if it's still a little bit cold, you'll build up so much that the thinners in it will release the original primer coat and you might start to get fish eyes and runs. It's funny stuff, it's not like using regular paint. But it's the same principles, just take your time, don't rush it. and don't get impatient for a finish. You'll get a good finish. Just take your time. Your bracket. Right, I reckon that's about it. That's it. Now I'm going to leave it there. There's not a lot I can do now, because obviously this is going to take 24 hours at least before this goes off, and then I can scuff it up. Like I said, green Scotch pad, going to go over it and check for any areas that flake off. As it says in the instructions, it's very simple. If you ever need to know, just read the can, it's all on there. The dust coat at the beginning, that's the primer, but it didn't really flash off properly because it is quite cold in here. So I'm going to give that 24 full hours, Scotch Brite it, and then any little areas that flake off, we can just go at them with a more aggressive paper, so it just gets that little bit more scuffage in there, and then recoat the whole thing up. So there we are. 2 coats done. Just a quick look. And it's gone on very nicely. You can always tell how well matte is going to come out if it comes out really well as a gloss when it's wet. You get any little marks in it or blemishes in it, you can see them when it's wet, more so than when it's dry. So if you know it's pretty flawless at this stage, then it's going to be totally flawless later. I know I'm going to rub this coat down, but the better it is, the easier job that'll be. There we go. I reckon this is going to look the business. Certainly better than chromy shiny anyway. So there we are. All I can do is let that dry now. Sorry it's not a very interesting video, but there it is. This is all part of the project. I love the finish. I love the colour. Definitely better than shiny. And with the other pipes, I think they look great. The other side of it is I'm just going to save a little bit of paint for a layer over the pipes themselves, because if the matte when this is finished turns out different to the matte on the pipes on the silencers, then I'll have a little bit of paint left over to just put one coat over the silencers just to bring them to the same colour exactly, so it all blends in nicely. So there we are. That's all it was for now. Nothing very interesting, I'm afraid. Looking good. Let's see what they look like tomorrow, ready for a little bit of a scuff down, see if it's all stuck there properly. Okay, take it easy, ride safe, thanks for watching. Appreciate the comments. See you next time.